Hey, Big Blue Banter listener, would you like an extra $500? That's a lot of cash. Go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and, in turn, help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. BlueWirePods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of this episode.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Velato, and today we are here to break down the All-22 film. That's the coach's film, the sideline and the end zone angle of the New York Giants' defensive debut in Week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell with new defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. And I just want to remind everyone, if you do enjoy our content, please hit the like button. We've done 2 really good videos over the last 4 days. The first was our live reaction to Week 1. That did over 12,000 views. Decent amount of likes, not that many likes. A lot of comments, though, and comments help too. But again, likes are what drives things. Yesterday, the film review on the offense, great video. I was really excited and happy, Nick, about how many people watched it. I thought we put a lot of great work into that. We put a lot of tape up, too. You know, we have a lot of good tape to watch there for those who want to just watch film of this team. Not as many likes as I was hoping for, man. So I'm getting a little down, man. So that's Nick that I'm referring to there as man. But to you guys listening and girls, help us out, all right? This is a tough season. This is a tough gig. The Giants are really bad for all of us. I feel horrible for the fans who invested their money for the season tickets right now. There's no way, shape, or form that we should be discussing things like that was asked yesterday, Nick, to Brian Dable. Are you benching Daniel Jones in Week 2 of a season? It is a bad sign to be
laugh,
there.
Man. It's so depressing. You just got to kind of
so depressing that you almost have to laugh. But what's not depressing is us growing this podcast and you guys being there along the ride with us. So to help us do that, please hit the like button right now on this video. Stop whatever you're doing and hit the like button. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, please just go to YouTube, type in Big Blue Banter, go to this video, and then hit like. That will probably take you 16 to 22 seconds, I would estimate. But thank you for those who did already and helped those videos grow. I was excited about that, and I hope this one will take off as well, Nick. But on the defense side of the ball, there's a lot of main topics I want to discuss with you after watching the tape. We're going to get to all of them on this show. Kayvon Thibodeaux, the secondary, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. And I say it in that voice because that was a positive. But this is where I want to start. Shane Bowen's run defense in Week 1. I came away from this tape highly disappointed in the run defense. Then I went to check out your page, not your page, say some notes that you had, which is kind of my process. Always do my review, go to see your notes. You didn't seem too thrilled in those notes. And then I saw a tweet from Derek Klassen, who is breaking down tape now for Pro Football Focus. And he said, structurally, the Giants defense was the worst defense I saw this entire week. The C gap was free real estate all game for the opposing offense. Look, we were billed a good, we were promised a bill of goods. You know, I always get those wrong. When Shane Bowen came here, and that bill of goods included, as we saw in Hard Knocks, Brian Dable referencing, look at his run defense, and then reeling off stats to Joe Shane, which was, again, one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. But we don't need to get back into that. But he had a good run defense for the Titans. Structurally speaking, I thought the idea was his defense was going to start with stopping the run, and that was going to be the most important thing. We even saw him say that on Hard Knocks. So what happened in Week 1? Is there any validity to what Derek Klassen said about structurally this being one of the worst defense, or the worst defense he saw on tape?
So I haven't watched all those other teams, but structurally the defense was not sound, specifically with the C gap. And one of the reasons why, and we knew this was going to be the case with Shane Bowen, there was going to be more wide 9, more edge rushers are going to be out wide. And when you have that and you expect a pass, so you're going to try to win high side, use your speed and your explosiveness to run around the offensive tackle, you essentially run yourself out of the C gap. So it would be second and 10. It would be these downs that it's neutral. It could be a passing down. It could be a running down. Well, the Vikings and KOC decided to run the football and hit basically that C gap where an edge rusher was flying or attempting to fly around Christian Darrisaw or attempting to fly around Brian O'Neill. If you're going to execute that type of rush and you're not going to play the run to start, those linebackers and that defensive tackle need to execute some sort of technique to protect the C gap. We've heard it described as gap and a half. We've heard it described as the lag technique, where you're not necessarily attacking. You're going to jolt whoever is in front of you, the offensive lineman, if you're that defensive tackle, let's say, and you're going to get your eyes on that running back and you're going to put your hips in the backside gap. And you're going to maintain a presence in a gap and a half. So if the run is going to the opposite side, you can quickly shed and you could still give yourself an opportunity to crash down or crash forward, depending on where you are on that responsibility that was just vacated because your edge rusher is executing a different type of assignment because he believes he can possibly win up the arc. And if it is a passing play, you can end up getting that sack. So there was no defensive tackles executing the lag technique. Now, this was really evident on the tape when Dexter Lawrence was not on the field. Remember, there was like a 19-yard rush by Aaron Jones, followed up by, I think, like a 13-yard rush or just another big chunk gain when Dexter Lawrence was not on the field. Both of those, I want to say, hit the C gap and went right where the edge was attempting to fly around, and the linebackers need to get to that spot. And if they don't, then you're screwed if that defensive tackle also isn't there. So there were, I don't know if there were miscommunication errors. I'm honestly unsure, but this needs to be rectified. There needs to be gap sound disciplined defense for Shane Bowen. And we didn't see that at all. And I don't know if it starts with the defensive lineman, if the edge rushers are told not to do that and they're just doing it, if the linebacker's not getting in place, because all three of those things unfortunately manifested on several plays that led to these huge Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler runs.
So really interesting to bring up what you said at the end there, Nick, about whose responsibility it is, because that kind of could lead us in the direction of how this can be fixed on a fast basis. Because guess what? It's going to have to be fixed because this is not going to be the last offense that wants to take advantage of runs through the C gap. We just watched the San Francisco 49ers with a backup running back eat up the Jets through the C gap the other on Monday Night Football. And that's kind of how that, and there's a lot of people coming from that Shanahan coaching tree right now, and a few more on the Giants schedule as well. So this is something they're going to have to clean up. This is where I kind of would love to have like a resource, like a Carl Banks on the show. I know we've talked to him before and we've been on his show, just kind of hear what his thoughts are. Obviously, he's not going to be able to give us the insight on like, is this something the edge rushers here are kind of freelancing or not, I almost feel like the question becomes though, Nick, like, do the Giants have the depth at defensive tackle, or we can call it interior defensive line, to even provide a solution rest of season? Because we know, look, when Dexter Lawrence is off the field, we're going to get targeted on these runs.
Yeah, you just need to have more of a presence in that C gap. And I think these defensive tackles that the Giants have can do that. I just don't know if they were fully aware of what they were supposed to be doing at that juncture, if they knew that the edge rushers were doing that. I can't imagine that the edge rushers are doing that just willy-nilly, right? I have to imagine there are contingencies within that defense, unless there is something within the defense where they're like, okay, we expect this to be passed. You guys go, linebackers get to that spot. Like they just weren't working in unison with the edge. Like if we start at the starting point is the edge rushers are going around the C gap and they're vacating the C gap. They're just completely abandoning their run fit, their run responsibility. That's like football 101 is you don't do that. So if we're starting there, then the linebacker or that defensive tackle needs to have some sort of presence in that C gap that is being abandoned. And that just was not the case. And I'm wondering if it was something that the Vikings offensive coordinator and Kevin O'Connell noticed early in the game, and then they just started exploiting it. Regardless of it, I'm hoping at least that Shane Bowen is going to have that rectified, and maybe we'll see the edge rushers be a little bit more tamed. And honestly, that's probably for the best, unless it's like 3rd and 6 plus, 3rd and 7 plus, because the Giants weren't winning around the edge.
Regardless of what you want to make of week one, it was one game, and it's possible in the NFL that teams can just kind of throw out the tape of 1 week, and we could see a completely different team this week in week 2, in which case the season's back on track. In another way to look at it, if they lose to the Redskins or whatever we're calling them now, the Commanders, and I'm going to just keep getting that wrong for the rest of my life, I guess. I sometimes just go football team. I still feel like they should be the football team over the Commanders. Just an idiotic name, the Commanders. But if they lose the Commanders this week, Nick, it's over. It's not over. Teams have come back from 0-2, but this is the easy part of their schedule. And a big way that they're going to beat the Commanders, in my mind, is if they can stop the run first and foremost, because I don't have much respect at all, to be honest, for Cliff Kingsbury's play calling or his play design or his offensive system. I think it's one of the worst, if not the worst, in the NFL. And I don't understand it. It's like kind of like the Breaking Bad, Jesse from Breaking Bad meme. Like, how does he keep getting away with this? Like what he's talking about, Walt.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about Cliff Kingsbury getting jobs in the NFL. But one thing I do respect, and I remember this from his Arizona days, dude, when we watched some tape against Cardinals versus the Giants. Remember Chase Edmonds, the game where he blew up the Giants and just destroyed us on the ground? I do respect how he schemes the run game, Kingsbury. And I think it's going to be a point of emphasis in this game, given what he saw the Giants offense unable to do last week. So is this something that can be turned around and fixed right away in week 2 against a very much so worse offensive line? With that said, keep in mind, Minnesota had not been known for run blocking well up until this point, until this game. They had not gotten the run game going. They had gotten knocked for their run game. It was not multiple. It was a better pass blocking unit. So we've heard similar things about the Red Commanders, not a good O-line, but what are your thoughts about turning that around right away?
I'm not optimistic about it. Some of it is possibly personnel related to some degree. And I don't think it would be maybe as bad as it was against the Vikings. I just think you just need to be, I said it a little bit earlier, a little bit more cohesive as a unit and a little bit more structurally sound in terms of your run fits. And you have to really stress that and worry about that, which is going to hinder the pass rush that was almost non-existent for the New York Giants anyways, because when you're really focusing on the run, that means you're like tempering your rush if you're going to go high side. You're significantly tempering your rush if you're going to go high side. And that's Brian Burns's best trait as a defensive player, is going high side. Kayvon attempts to go high side frequently, unsuccessfully, unfortunately. So those edge rushers might have to be a little bit more tempered with their rush, or the linebackers need to be that much more dialed in, or a safety maybe closer into the box if he's going to have a C gap responsibility. Typically they have a B gap responsibility. It kind of depends on what formation you're in, what formation they're in. So there's a lot that goes into it, but to answer your question, I'm not optimistic. I think they could be more disciplined, and that will certainly help. But I think this defense, if Dexter Lawrence isn't on the field, there is a massive,
it really is
almost a Dexter Lawrence sized problem. Now, again, as I alluded to before, I think they're good enough to at least try to keep it structurally sound, but they could still get dominated at the point of attack. They're not going to shed blocks as quickly. DJ Davidson was on the ground so much in this game. Elijah Chapman was on the ground a ton in this game as well. So that's going to be a really big problem. And you know what, man, it's been terrible being a Giants fan for the last decade. But one thing maybe we took for granted was the fact that we had a good defensive line with Dalvin Tomlinson, Snacks, with Leonard Williams, with all of these players.
Good interior defensive line.
Yes, DJ Hill. We've had that. And now we never really had good edge rushers to complement it. Well, now we have hopefully one good edge rusher, which we'll get into in a little bit. Another one that is wildly suspect at this point, which we'll get into as well. But behind Dexter Lawrence, it's thin, dude. It's thin at a position where you can't be thin. You got to be thick.
It's thin in a position where it can't be thin. I wonder about some of the moves like trading Jordan Phillips, who I again thought could help in some regard in the run defense. I really like some of his tape in Buffalo. Played more than a few snaps for Dallas, but it is what it is. He didn't fit. He didn't play all summer, and they wanted to give Chapman a shot. We'll get into it, but I know both of us, from just seeing your notes and from what I saw, not enthusiastic about Chapman's debut. Worried a little bit about his size at this level translating. Obviously in the preseason, it looked great. That's against preseason offensive linemen and preseason offensive scheme, which is vanilla. We'll see what happens there. It's one game. I'm not willing to throw the towel in, but I'm just saying the depth is not great right now. It may be a personnel issue. Remember 2 years ago in 2022, they tried a lot of different things, the Giants run defense, but no matter what they really tried, they couldn't stop power gap and concepts run at them because they simply didn't have the personnel. They didn't have the second level personnel to stop those plays. And that can happen in an NFL season. I don't want to say it's happening yet, Nick. Obviously, we hope that's not the case this early, but I am worried going into this Washington game. And I wanted to start with the run defense because I think a lot of the focus this week from Giants fans, and rightfully so, has been on the pass rush, which we're about to get into. But the run defense was equally as suspect in this game and equally as to blame, I think, because when you can be that multiple as an offense, it's really hard, in my opinion, to stop you as a defense. So let's now get into the pass rush. There's a few things I want to start with before we get individually, though, because there's obviously stuff to touch on there. I just want to hear structurally your thoughts. It's such a big difference. I thought, I was curious what it would be like, Nick, to watch tape after watching 2 straight years of Wink style. And just the drastic difference I might see, but it was even crazier than I thought. I mean, this guy just is, at least this week, he really did not send many blitzes, Shane Bowen. And I'm Curious if that's just going to be what we're going to be watching. A lot of these types of looks would just rely on your guys to get after the passer, but there was not a lot of aggressive steps by him. And again, like, I know that's his system, Nick, but this is Sam Darnold, right? This is a quarterback who went 2 of 17 in a joint practice against, I forget who they played earlier this August. And what they did, the opposing team, I think it was the Bengals, what they did was just blitz him every snap, and he threw it until he threw a pick six in the flat. They put the pressure on him. Sam Darnold is not a quarterback who has dealt well with pressure and blitz. That wasn't the game plan today, though. It wasn't and we talked a lot about this with Wink. And it's the last point, and I want to get to what you have to say. But with Wink, we always said, we're going to be guaranteed, Nick. What did we say? We're going to be guaranteed a game plan specific to the offense that they're facing. It's going to be different every week, and it's going to be not you're not running a system out there every week.
What's up, everybody? It's Jerry Ferrara. I've got a new podcast called Throwbacks with Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart, where we will be talking about all things sports, all things pop culture, and all things about our lives. From football locker rooms to Hollywood green rooms, we've got you covered. We're your weekly destination for the games you want to hear about and the stories you won't forget. Listen to Throwbacks on Apple Podcasts or Spotify with new episodes every Thursday.
What's up, big Blue Banter listeners? I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out, it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. And all of Mint Mobile's plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That's mintmobile.com/BBB. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/BBB. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
It felt a little bit to me like Shane Bowen was trying to put his early marks on what his system will be in this game, and it didn't really feel specific to Sam Darnold as a quarterback.
I mean, I think you're right. I think there's just a lot going on, though, too. This is a new defense. Typically,
right. That's the key thing. Yes.
Yeah. And not only that, there were changes that were made right before the snap, it seemed like, right before the kickoff that we didn't expect. Like, Micah McFadden didn't play. It was Darius Musow. And Musow did not look bad for a late day 3 pick. Right? He did not look bad, in my opinion. And then you had Cordell Flott, man, the slot. And it was like, well, he hadn't done that like all training camp, right? And and he's not, like, let's just be frank here, he's not good right now. And that's a big issue that we have. And he got beat on that Justin Jefferson decoy touchdown to Jalen Naylor. But when you have such a young secondary, when you have changes in your secondary and at your linebacker position, and you're not defending the run well, I don't know if you can get into your exotic bag, and start blitzing like crazy. Okay. I would like to think that you could, but I don't know if the defense is up to speed enough when you have a guy like Adoree Jackson, who was just signed recently, come in here and he's playing significant snaps for you. Like, they were hardly in sub packages.
I believe in that theoretic. I'm sorry.
Dave Belton played like 9 snaps. You know, he made a play.
The whole snap counts are weird. I mean, we can get into that
because they weren't really in. I don't think a ton of sub packages because they were trailing in much of this game. So they were more so just that they weren't in like big dime and big nickel too frequently. It didn't seem like, at least they weren't in just base, but they had 2 linebackers on the field. Like, Musow played 45 snaps in this game. I think ideally you don't want that. Like, you want to get those big 3 safeties out there. Belton was only out there on that 3rd and long. Where he made that play in 8 other defensive plays. I'm imagining Bowen wants to use him more. And that's one of the reasons why, is because the Giants were just trailing the entire game.
I respect that idea, Nick. I do. And I understand the concern that Bowen might have going into a week 1, but I will juxtapose it with what we saw from Wink Martindale in his first game coordinating a Giants defense. It was a specific game plan to the offense he was facing, the Titans offense. He dialed that whole thing around, stopping Derrick Henry and making them win in other ways. That was week 1. It wasn't, oh no, I'm going to be worried if I allocate too many resources to this, what's going to happen on my back end. Wink, generally speaking, was never really worried about what's going to happen on the back end if I allocate too more resources. It was all about, I'm going to dictate to you. And I respect not wanting to do that when you're worried about the communication on the back end. But with a quarterback like Sam Darnold, again, because I know we're going to see it this year. Everyone, Sam Darnold, is he turning things around with Kevin O'Connell? Just wait. Just wait for the first defense that puts pressure on him. And Darnold throws for like 138 with 2 interceptions, including a really brutal one. Because it's not like his career is going to be revived. And I could be wrong on that, by the way. So if I am, God bless you, and you can call me out on that later this season. But I just sometimes feel like, too much. Maybe he was a little too concerned about what's going to happen on the back end, because it just felt like they were, I don't want to say going through the motions, because that's not what they were doing, but it just didn't feel like they put a lot on Sam Darnold's plate. I'll say that.
I think that is fair. I think, again, I'm not making excuses, but there was a lot going on for the Giants. I'll say this. They blitzed on the Dexter Lawrence sack. That was really early on in the game.
Yes.
And Dexter Lawrence got the one-on-one against Ed Ingram. Bobby Okereke went up to the line of scrimmage. He didn't green dog, which means just go in and blitz and abandon your responsibility, because your responsibility, being the running back in man coverage, was staying in for protection. But he at least went up to the line of scrimmage, and then 5 other guys went and pressured and blitzed. And I think the next time they blitzed on a pass might have been when the ball was down at the 1-yard line. They blitzed again, and that's smart, right? You want to blitz them in that situation. Yes. And what did KOC call? A rollout. And everyone got pressed at the line of scrimmage, and Ty Chandler was wide open in the flat with like no one near him, and it went for 9 yards. So I think, like, situationally, like, the chess match was certainly won by KOC and the Minnesota Vikings when it comes to that. I just don't think this is also in his identity, and I don't think you could get as
that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. But we can also, he's not going to be able to get into his bag with this type of game script in this type of situation as well.
Yeah. It's just interesting as we move forward. I can't say that I don't want to say I'm in any way doubting Shane Bowen or anything like that, but I can't say that I feel the same way I felt like with Wink Martindale when he first came on the scene, because it was just very good tape, and it was very interesting to watch him really have a specific game plan to stop the Titans, which he did in that game. And we didn't stop this Vikings offense at all in this game. Obviously, there were some bad situations, man. The pass interference, the penalty by Kayvon, those are two.
See, I hate that pass interference call.
I do too.
Like you could say, oh, Dorian needs to get his head around. Blah, blah.
I really don't agree.
But neither do I, because, like, you're rewarding an offense. Like, that was such a bad throw. And you could say, it's a great savvy play by Jordan Addison.
And I feel like he kind of almost did get his head around, by the way, at the end.
Yeah, like, to me, that's so ticky-tacky. And I know, like, I come off.
It changes the whole game, too. That's the thing.
I know.
Like,
Giants would have definitely won by 40 if it didn't call that.
No, I mean, not that. I mean, and the Kayvon Thibodeaux one, like, these are like some big plays that extended drives. But yeah, now let's get to some individual stuff. We talked a little bit about 30,000 foot view with Bowen. Let's go first with Brian Burns, and then we'll go to Kayvon Thibodeaux. Start maybe with the positive, because I think we're going to have a more positive outlook on Brian Burns' game than the majority of people had, than the stats show, because there's some bad stats from a pressure standpoint with both of these guys, and what kind of the narrative has been. And I think a big reason for that is the attention that was obvious to see when you watch the film, and we're going to see some of that the opposing offense put a game plan specific by Kevin O'Connell to not let Brian Burns be the one who beats you.
Oh yeah, dude. There was a running back. It was a tight end. Like, there were so much chips, man. And it was crazy that he had to deal with. And there was a lot of times where the tight end was aligned over him. They would fake like he would chip to have him hesitate and just slow down his overall rush. There were at least 2 hands and a shoulder on Brian Burns in like every single passing situation between the running back or the tight end. So I'm not sitting like, look, he's getting paid to defeat that anyways. And I understand why people feel that way, but I believe it is much more incumbent on Kayvon Thibodeaux to win his one-on-ones, or at least get pressure on.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. With Brian Burns, I want to see more. I'm not going to sit here and say I was pleased with his performance. I felt like the inside spin move that he had, that was a really smart, adaptive rush, because the running back was going outside to chip him again. So he spun inside, hit Sam Darnold, forced an incomplete pass. I think that might have been on a 3rd down too. If not, it was a 2nd down. So very important play. Dexter Lawrence feasted the entire time. So, like, you're going to get that from him, but you need those other pass rushers to step up to alleviate the pressure on Brian Burns and to maybe force protection to go elsewhere, because Brian Burns, if he's just going to face a tight end chip and a running back chip like every single time, and you're not getting anything from those other 2 pass rushers not named Dexter Lawrence, that's much more of a referendum on them than it is on Brian Burns. But we do need Brian Burns to step it up just a little bit more as well, because he is getting paid the dollars too. Like, he had 1 pressure in this and then 4 tackles. He was also used as like a linebacker a lot of the times. Whenever the strength of the formation, when the tight ends went away from Brian Burns, he would drop off the line of scrimmage and then basically operate as a linebacker. Had actually a really nice heavy tackle on Aaron Jones in pursuit. But yeah, no, just still a disappointing performance by him. First start as a New York Giant.
It's a disappointing performance. It's a tough matchup, honestly, for him. But there's going to be tough matchups, and there's going to be tougher tackle matchups, specifically in the NFC East, right? I mean, we got the Eagles and even the Cowboys at tackle. So we're going to need to see, when you're paid that kind of money, what was that little nod to what you're drinking?
Yeah, it was just a cheers. I'm drinking seltzer water, of course, but it was just a cheers. I was going to pour one out for the Giants season, but I didn't.
Oh, no, okay. You really downgraded. You're drinking Schweppes these days?
Okay, so Schweppes, I wasn't a big fan of him. And then at Giants training camp, they have Schweppes, and that's their seltzer water. So, let me give it a try. Underrated. It's not quite Waterloo. Like, people like drink Buble, and I know this is why everyone's coming to this podcast. It's the worst.
Terrible.
Yeah, Buble's terrible.
It was a great take by you when you first said Buble was overrated.
Oh, it's the worst. And LaCroix is a little bit overrated too. Everything's
another overrated.
And I want to say Schweppes, I think I'm correct on this. I have to double check it. I think they're like the best when it comes to like not having a lot of forever chemicals in their aluminum.
Oh,
so that's like another reason why. But I got to double check that, dude. That's kind of like, I saw that a while ago, and I just more so like the taste. And now I'm like grabbing at it to justify me. It's like one of those situations. But
I would say my favorite seltzer, and we'll stop it right after this, is Waterloo. You turn me on to those. They're actually amazing. Great carbon. For me, a great seltzer is great amount of carbonation. I want to
burp. I want to burp after my
crisp and burp. Yes. Yeah. But my most underrated, which I don't know if you've had, but I've told you this is my most underrated before, is Polar Seltzer, Polar. And you could get a lot of them online from Amazon for cheap. So I just basically always drink Polar for that reason, pretty much, but also because they're underrated. I would put it up in like the top 5 category. But anyway, let's get back to what wasn't underrated in this game, and that's the Giants pass rush. So we talked about Brian Burns a little bit. And again, I think you're right. Ultimately, he's paid a certain amount of money, and they traded enough draft capital to where he has to defeat even the best tackles. But look, if he's going to get chipped and doubled a lot, A, I kind of feel like Shane Bowen should be able to take advantage of that, which we'll see throughout the season if he is or he's not. But B, I'll tell you one person who better be able to take advantage of that, starting not moving forward, because he obviously didn't in this game. It's Kayvon Thibodeaux.
And before we get into that, and I agree with you,
and
I think in a better game script, Shane Bowen will be able to do that, because one way you can alleviate the pressure if Kayvon and the other pass rusher is not stepping up to help Brian Burns is bring pressure, bring blitzes, show blitzes, bail off those blitzes, and have those running backs away, force those running backs and those tight ends maybe away from where Brian Burns is.
Yep, that's very fair. But speaking of Kayvon Thibodeaux, look, Dexter Lawrence was in this game and absolutely dominant. This was like one of his better games, and just goes so unheralded because he didn't get a lot of sacks in the sack sheet. He got one. And then also because the Giants were down so much, they had to just kind of play the Vikings were just running the ball in the second half. And this happens a lot. We talked about this all offseason, dude. Like, how are we going to get our sack totals when the Giants are down 3 scores in the second half and teams are just not passing the football or put in any kind of tough situations? But, the only way that's going to change is if the offense steps up. And so that's going to have to start right away. But as far as Kayvon goes, with Dexter Lawrence on the field and Brian Burns getting extra attention, like you said, and like it was obvious on the tape, and we should get into some tape review soon if we have it. With that said, Nick, like, what do you make of Kayvon Thibodeaux? Because I saw one stat. Shout out to, I'm sorry, I forgot who sent this to us. Can't remember the name. It's somebody we interact with a ton on Twitter, but I apologize for not remembering. But according to Seth Walder, the top 5 edge rushers whose pass rush get off number, and I don't even know how ESPN comes up with this stuff, but they do, improved the most from 2023 to 2024 on average in week 1. Chase Young was 1. Kayvon Thibodeaux was number 2. His get off in 2023 was 0.85 seconds. And in week 1, it was 0.71 seconds. So we're talking about somebody who improved his get off, and we saw that throughout camp. And yet, where's the rest of it, right? Where's the counter moves? Where's the ability to win with his hands, with his power? Where is he? What was happening with Kayvon Thibodeaux in this game? Also, 0 tackles.
Yeah, no. So I can't really speak on the Seth Walder tweet. I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, yeah, he looked really explosive, because to me, I just saw him on the ground a lot. And honestly, I don't think I've seen Kayvon Thibodeaux play that bad. Or maybe I should say this. I haven't seen Kayvon Thibodeaux get dominated as much as he did against Christian Darrisaw, to the point where Shane Bowen had to move him to the other side and put Brian Burns on Christian. Christian Darrisaw had a plan of action for basically anything Kayvon Thibodeaux tried. And it looked like Kayvon Thibodeaux was like one of those like UDFAs that we would be high on. Like, I don't even want to like say Timon Fox, because that makes Timon Fox look maybe poorer than he actually is, but like a Timon Fox where we're like, yeah, we like this guy. Let's see how he does. And then he just gets absolutely dominated by like a real tackle. That's what it looked like. Kayvon Thibodeaux is a top 5 draft pick. He's a
He didn't
top.
look like it in this game.
No. And Kayvon Thibodeaux right now, the way he is playing, if he was like a 3rd-round pick, that's like nice. It's like, okay, yeah, we've got him at like, 90 or whatever. And
Sure.
yeah, he's a functional player. He had 10 sacks last year, even though, a lot of them were against like guys who aren't necessarily starting offensive tackles, but I don't want to discredit him. But what we saw on Sunday, man, holy crap, man, he was dominated the entire game. And he just didn't seem to have an answer. And every time he tried something different, Darrisaw had the answer. And it looked like in the second half, he was just frustrated when he was running. And that culminated when Jordan Ronan was interviewing him. And he got snippy with Ronan. And it's like, come on, man. Like Ronan, I don't know if like Ronan asked like 3 questions in a row. That's possible. Ronan can do that sometimes. He can ask certain questions, but you don't just like not look at a reporter and then just say, anybody else have a question? Like it's just like, come on, man, like be professional with this. So I felt like that was a bad look for Kayvon Thibodeaux, especially after the performance that he put out on the field, which was again pretty atrocious.
Yeah, it was a very bad look for him. I have a lot of thoughts on Kayvon Thibodeaux from that standpoint. We'll touch on that, I guess, right now, the off-field type of angles. It's like, I almost feel like this culture that we've been promised in this locker room from Daboll and Shane is not really showing out. And it kind of always goes back to what I say about culture, man.
Winning.
We hear it from every single freaking new regime. I'm building a certain culture. We're getting the type of players that fit the culture. Look at us. And then they have these moments where like, see, that was a culture building moment, or see, this guy fits the culture because he did this. And then that culture seems to disintegrate pretty damn fast, Nick, when you get blown out 28-6 in your home opener. And then all of a sudden you have a guy not answering a question from a reporter. And, we've seen this throughout the course of these bad Giants years. I'm personally done buying into culture. I want to buy into talent and production on the field and tape. That's what I am putting first. And I think culture will come with that. It obviously doesn't mean you just throw it out the door. You don't draft guys like Kadarius Toney and DeAndre Baker. These are terrible culture players. These are terrible. I'm just going to say this, and I hate to say it about these two individuals when it comes to wanting to be the best at their craft and wanting to be great football players. I'm sorry to say that about them. I don't know them personally, but I'm just judging off their actions from what I've seen in the league. And I apologize for that if that's a little bit of a stretch, but it matters, Nick. But I just, I hear it too much. And I don't think Kayvon Thibodeaux is bad for culture. I just think when you're getting your ass kicked like the Giants did, you can have moments like that where you're like, I don't want to answer this question from this reporter. And like you said, you have to be more mature in that situation. But I just don't know or get the feel that this is like some great culture the Giants have going on.
I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by that. They suck. They got embarrassed for the second year in a row.
I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And I agree with you. But that's the point I'm trying to make. No matter how good you can try to craft a culture by being a GM and putting the certain guys in the room, it doesn't matter if you're not winning games, because the easiest way to disintegrate a culture. But I don't think everybody really knows or agrees with that personally. I feel like people overrate the culture and believe it can just cut through a lot of that. And I also think when you're winning, it doesn't matter who's on your team. Everyone's bought in and the culture is great. So I kind of just feel like you got to win. I also think you got to believe in your team. I'm not positive this defense believes in the offense right now at all. At all.
There is no way they believe. Like anybody who's been on a football team where one side of the football or one side of the coin, one side of the team carries the team, that the resentment.
Which is not even to say that's what the defense did, by the way. Nobody carried any. But
of course. But but last season, I'm not saying the defense carried them, because the defense had its holes and they had its warts, but the defense
gave them a shot.
They were playing like 65, 70, 75 snaps consistently. And their offense was playing like 50 and turning the football over and forcing the defense onto the football field, to defend a short 25 yards, you know what I'm saying? And hope to just hope to force a field goal. So those situations, a lot of resentment can be fostered. I mean, anybody who plays sports, especially football, like a sport like this, where it's like, I'm on the offense, I'm on the defense, that's something that's very real and palpable. And
we got to
there's a common denominator here too, with who a lot of the fans are blaming right now, right? I think it's a collective, but there is one face of the franchise who takes a lot of arrows, and he has not performed, and he's been paid to perform. And I'm obviously talking about Daniel Jones, and that's not a good thing. When people on the team, I'm not saying this is happening, but I think naturally it's going to happen if the offense keeps scoring 6 points. Players on the defense are going to be like, we need a freaking change, dude. Like anything at this point, because we're not doing anything right now. After a whole offseason of, we added Malik Neighbors, we added to the offensive line, we got this, Brian Daboll is the play caller, and if they don't score points, especially against Washington, like Washington's going to be a great test for this, because Washington's defense is so bad. And if the Giants still can't move the football, again, we said it, I don't want to reiterate, but it has,
No, but
something
it's
has to
important.
change.
Yeah. If they can't move, if they can't get this offense on track against Washington, there's really no reason at all to play Daniel Jones the rest of the season. I stand by that. And obviously, if he plays like he played last week, if he takes a step forward and plays better, he can continue to start for whatever, until it gets really bad. But this is not a game you can afford to have another one like this, obviously. But I will say this about what you said. Like, I look back at some past Giants years, Nick, and I think I remember clearly the one that I remember the most, which is the funniest to me, was probably the 2017 epic collapse with McAdoo and Reese. But there was also one with Judge where you'll get a Puff article about a week or two before. Players believe in everybody. We love this. We love Judge. And then fans say, see what this guy said about Daniel Jones. They love Daniel Jones. They rally for Daniel Jones. His teammates love to play around Daniel Jones. But then you think about it and you take a few more minutes and you take a step back, Nick, and think about it logically. And you're like, what are they going to say to the media? Would they ever say to the media, I can't stand being on the defense side of the ball and watching this guy have no confidence, can't even complete a forward pass, can't even keep the defense off the field? They would never say that to the media because they're going back to the locker room with that same player. And also, it doesn't have a good look for ownership. And those are the people who decide if you're going to get paid and continue your career and help your family, feed your family. So it's never going to happen. So if there's actual resentment building toward Daniel Jones, which I imagine naturally, it's impossible there wouldn't be at this point, especially when Kayvon Thibodeaux came out earlier this offseason and said, I'm mad the Giants didn't pay Saquon Barkley, essentially before they paid Daniel Jones. When that type of stuff happens, like, we're never going to find out about it. So don't act like you see some stupid fluff article. Golden Tate says it was not Daniel Jones's fault. He must be right. He played on the team. Use your eyes. See what you're watching. Do you think the defense wants to play for this offense right now? Do you think any defense in the world, do you think any human being wouldn't be frustrated on the defense side of the ball when your offense is doing what they did against the Vikings defense last week? I know the Vikings defense is a little more talented to give credit for, and they got a good coordinator. But goddamn, if you think that's going to be a top 10 defense, hell no. The Giants are about to face 10 more defenses this year who are better than the Vikings defense, at least, in my opinion. And we'll see soon enough. So, no, I don't buy into any of that. But I want to focus it back on the defensive film and talking about Kayvon Thibodeaux, because we did it's always going to happen because we're talking about the off-field issue of it. But let's just talk about the on-field stuff. I had been thinking about this, Nick, when I was watching Kayvon Thibodeaux this week and focusing in on him, and when I've just thought about all his snaps with the Giants. You think about a lot of these top edge picks, right? Montez Sweat, even Trayvon Walker is not good, but this is just fitting this example. I feel like when I see them, dude, they have a much wider build. They look a lot more intimidating, and they're just bigger human beings. When I've seen Kayvon Thibodeaux at practice and in these games, and when I watch him on tape, I don't feel like he's very physically imposing. I don't think he has much like bend to his game. I know he was great at Oregon, and we watched great tape there, and it felt like a lot of the time he was winning in the same way. But I'm almost wondering, like, what made him the prospect he was? That's what I'm trying to unpack and get to the bottom of, to try to go backwards on this thing, to try to figure out how do we go forwards? Like, how do we get him back to that level? Because as I look at it right now, he's already drafted. Like, those prospect days are over. What I see on tape doesn't really strike me as someone who's going to break out as an elite edge guy, because there's no physical traits that determine it right now. And it's not like he's winning with technique. Like, I watch Aiden Hutchinson, right? Who's unbelievable right now. It doesn't look anything like, and I watched his cut up this week of all Aiden Hutchinson snaps because somebody put it on Twitter that I follow. And then I juxtapose that versus what I watched with Kayvon Thibodeaux. I know they're facing different tackles, but it just doesn't look anything close to the same.
No, it doesn't. I think what made Kayvon Thibodeaux was his quickness in college, combined with his power and the fact that he wasn't necessarily technically refined, and there was a lot of room for development in that area. Sure. Like, he was never a very bendy, flexible, I'm going to win high side and bend incredibly at my lower body joints. Were you going to say something?
Well, I agree with you on that, but then what about from the first part, which you said, which I agreed with, that's how he won at college, but fits it. Now let's do it to the pros, right? The quickness, I think, could still be there. We saw that stat from Seth Walters. Get off is improving. And I still think he's kind of quick on film, but the power aspect of it, like, to me, just looking at his body type, he does not look physically imposing as an edge guy. And I don't really see him overwhelming these tackles from a power standpoint very often.
No, I don't see him overwhelming the tackles either, but he was a player that I stood next to in training camp. And I was like, you're bigger than I thought.
Okay.
You're a bigger human. Yeah. You're a lot bigger.
I felt the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was a lot bigger than I thought. Like, a little bit more broad in the shoulders, like like good, no Diddy lower body, like thickness and everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so,
Okay.
I kind of disagree with that, but like, it's not
Sure.
translating to the field. Now, if I want to, think glass half full, he was going up against probably one of the strongest tackles in the National Football League in Christian Darrisaw. But it was how poor he looked on certain reps against Darrisaw, where he was literally just getting buried, just buried in the dirt, kind of like snatch trap buried like a few different times. He also ran himself out of his run fit a couple times as well. I think that one was actually not even with Darrisaw. I think that was against Brian O'Neill, or Ty Chandler only picked up like 3 yards because Darius Musa made a good fill there. But yeah, man. Overall, with Kayvon Thibodeaux, is we need to start seeing an impact player. We need Kayvon Thibodeaux to start winning these one-on-one matchups, because that will allow Brian Burns to start to not see 4 hands on him, 2 pairs of hands on him. Dexter Lawrence going to do his thing, man. But Kayvon, you're a top 5 pick. He's not playing like it. Again, man, I say it again. If this guy was a round 3 selection, Dan, we would be like, oh, nice. He's a top 5 pick, man. He hasn't really played like that his entire career, if we're just going to be flat out honest about it.
Man, we spent a lot of time. You're right. And this will be a topic for another show, but we spent a lot of time this week, rightfully so in my mind, given what we put on tape, but discussing Daniel Jones and the impact he's had on this franchise losing, and the impact he had this past week in them losing. But Joe Shane spent a top 5 and a top 7 pick on Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeaux. And it's coming, the roosters are coming, or whatever. The roosters are crowing in the barn. Coming home to roost on that one.
You're so bad with that stuff.
I'm so bad. It's like every single one. It's like one of those like diseases or something.
But you want to know what I love about you is you still try it.
Oh, I'm going to keep trying. Yeah.
I love that, dude.
I don't give up.
That is so in your personality right there.
I won't back down. But let's take a look at some tape, because we got 40 minutes without any tape. So people are going to not be happy about that. Let's get some tape up here.
Yeah.
Where are you going to start here? Tape up.
Yeah. So I'm starting with this is the seam ball to Josh Oliver. It was a really nice pass by Sam Darnold. I just kind of want to showcase how the Giants were thinking about playing a star wide receiver who was being used in the slot. Kellen Moore is now in the division. Kellen Moore is known for using his star wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, in the slot. We're going to see that probably with A.J. Brown, and if that not, Devonta Smith is a very good wide receiver. So you can see Justin Jefferson, top of your screen. He is in the slot. Now, the Giants are going to go, and they're going to have cover 4. Bobby Okereke, middle hook defender. What does he do? He turns directly towards Justin Jefferson. And this was really smart on Sam Darnold, because he saw Bobby Okereke do this. And you could see just the bracket. You have both of the safeties, top of the numbers. Nick McLeod, inside leverage on the receiver who was running a bit of a wheel route. Muasau gets dragged up from that running back, and then you could just see how the seam just becomes wide open for Josh Oliver. Very nice throw, very nice play by Sam Darnold, but again, man, like
he still has that long wind up, Sam Darnold. You had it paused before. Like, look at where that ball goes, how low he gets that ball.
Oh yeah, dude.
But he whips it from that. That's how he generates his velocity. It almost feels like
it's a good throw. It really is, and it just fits right exactly where it needs to go, because the strength of the formation is to the other side, with, depending on how you want to look at the strength, with Josh Oliver, who's on the line of scrimmage as that nub player right there. I think there might be there's not a receiver at the bottom of the screen either. So you're still opening up towards Justin Jefferson, because he's such a threat. So we're going to probably see a similar type of coverage scheme against the CeeDee Lambs and the AJ Brown, because they're going to be used in the slot. And you can see how Justin Jefferson, there's really no room for him. You have a safety over top of him. You have Bobby Okereke, eyes directly on him, walling him off from the inside, and then another defender underneath, another middle hook defender underneath. But that's going to open up the area for Josh Oliver up that seam, and the Vikings exploited that and ended up turning this into 6 points. I think this is the sack by Dexter Lawrence. I just wanted to look, man, let's get a little positive right now, right? I'm not going to do a fake ad read, but Dexter Lawrence just runs right through Ed Ingram on this play, and there's just really there's just no chance for Ed Ingram to really do much. And Dexter, look how just low his hips are, like into the contact, man. Like once he makes that contact and he lands that inside hand on the shoulder pad, like you could see how his hips just sink. He has bend in his chest is kind of bowed upward. His legs are behind him, and he's still able to generate so much force and so much power through his hips into the contact while bending at 346 pounds. Like no one in the NFL can do this kind of stuff, man. That's why he's so damn unique. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he just breaks right through and just gets the sack on Sam Darnold. But unfortunately, the Giants, not much happened. We had a forced fumble, and then, we didn't really see this be maximized other than the fact that he did have 6 pressures in this game. So I like this twist from the Giants. The 3rd and long play. The Giants are going to overload the right side of the Vikings formation with Elijah Chapman, who is going to be the 2-eye on the inside shoulder of the guard, Dexter Lawrence, who is the 4-eye on the inside shoulder of the tackle, and then Kayvon Thibodeaux, who is wide. Now you have Brian Burns on the other side, and then a linebacker, Bobby Okereke, on the line of scrimmage with Dane Belton directly behind him. So there's one of the snaps where Dane Belton was on there. We didn't get to see a lot of these sub-package snaps because the Giants suck, but I think you're going to see more creative types of twists and crowding line of scrimmage, bailing, simulated pressures, creepers, all of those things if the Giants can maintain a positive or just a neutral game script. Right. But on this play, Kayvon Thibodeaux loops underneath. This is the pirate stunt that we used to talk about, right? Man, we talked about that all the offseason. Oh, the pirate stunt. You're going to have 2 defensive linemen go outward to try to sway the protection outward to get the center to flare outward. Kayvon Thibodeaux, the edge rusher, is going to loop underneath them and try to go through the A-gap. Now, it's a really good play by this guard who was cognizant of this happening. Okereke just presses the line of scrimmage. His assignment is the CJ Ham right there. But I just like this type of rush. And this is one of like the 4 times Elijah Chapman just got buried into the deck, as you can see.
Yeah, unfortunate end to this rep for Elijah Chapman. But I do like the look. I do like the blitz look that you talked about. Hopefully, like you said, get some positive game scripts. Oh, that was also the Adoree penalty as well. Yeah. Which from the back end does look a little bit more like what the rule says needs to be called. It just, again,
it does look a little bit more like it, but I still stand by,
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're going to have, this is the inside spin I was referencing before that led to an incomplete pass by Brian Burns. Again, you're out wide. You're forcing Brian O'Neill to vertical set. You could see how the running back, I think that's Aaron Jones, he's going to go chip. Brian Burns anticipates this. And this is one of the things I like about Brian Burns because he is so smooth, fluid, balanced, and controlled when he is spinning, when he is moving, right? So he is able to notice, I've been dealing with chips all damn game, right? He sets to the outside, makes contact, spins right back to the inside, gets that hit on Sam Darnold, and then forces that incomplete pass. It's a very good play by Brian Burns. This is his pressure that was credited to him. It could have easily have been a sack, and you also see Dexter Lawrence basically splitting a double team to create that interior pressure. And then we see Kayvon as well against Darisaw. Now, on this play, Kayvon had to deal with a tight end who was directly over top of him, right? Now, tight end doesn't chip him, but he's still, that affects your rush when you have some your area because they could chip you. You have to be aware of that. So he tries to go around, and you can see he just couldn't really do much on that rush, but that wasn't even one of the many that I was referencing earlier throughout this game, unfortunately, of course. Here, I just want to highlight, this is the drive, the 99-yard drive where they just kept getting chunk plays. Dexter Lawrence was off the field for a lot of these plays, but the Giants cornerbacks really struggled to account for the stems of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So you can see Jordan Addison, top of your screen. He's going to run outward, run inward, and then you can see Nick McCloud. He's like, I got to get over the top, play high on this route.
Right.
It's very subtle, but then it's how quick these 2 receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, how quick they can break off their routes, how I would say smooth their feet are when they are doing it, how they can sink their hips and come back towards the football, that really made it hell for the New York Giants cornerbacks. And it's look outward to the bottom of the numbers, back inward to about the top of the numbers, sink your hips, then flow back. And look how much space he creates against Nick McCloud. And that's not good coverage.
That's
not good. No, that's not good coverage, obviously, but you have the curl flat defender who's accounting for Josh Oliver. So really, Jordan Addison is isolated against Nick McCloud on this play. And it's a tough route to deal with, especially when it's well-timed and well-delivered, because there's all that space outside the numbers. The Giants were torn apart, gashed in the secondary outside the numbers. And routes like that were one of the reasons why. The Justin Jefferson route was similar, the one where he caught Deontay Banks. It was Justin Jefferson started inside, then he kind of broke vertical, and then he went out.
What does that all rely on, though? That all relies on timing in the passing game and rhythm and anticipation. And I think this is a great example of the difference between this passing game right now. Credit who you want, Kevin O'Connell, Sam Darnold, the receivers, whatever you want, how amount they've repped it, I don't know. But I mean, going back to that, this is just a really good play from everyone, the quarterback included. Like, just look at the difference between Sam Darnold when he's in the pocket, man, versus what we just watched yesterday of another quarterback in the pocket, Daniel Jones. Like, he catches this shotgun snap, and there's just no wasted movement. He's found his landmark, and that's it. And he knows he's going to get hit, but he's trusting the route. He's trusting where he's going to go with the football. He's anticipating where to throw the football, and he's throwing it before the receiver's out of the break, which you can't see from that angle, but it's what he does. And he's just not moving in the pocket. It just doesn't look uncomfortable for him back there. He's not skittishly slamming his body all around, going left, right, up, down. It's just find your landmark, settle down, and make the throw. And I just felt like I saw that throughout the game from Darnold. He really somehow got himself locked into this Kevin O'Connell scheme. This is another example of just very little wasted movement from the quarterback in the pocket. Find your landmark, plant, and go. I don't really know because he didn't have that many reps. He just had this offseason, but he really feels comfortable in this system, or looked it.
Yeah. And I expected him to because I've
really
Kevin O'Connell. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I took him in like fantasy and stuff.
If that's the case, though, Nick, and this is a larger discussion, I don't want to go too deep because it's more for the offense. But if that's the case, and what you said is, I thought he would be because of Kevin O'Connell. How good?
I don't think he's going to be like the Sam Darnold.
No, I know.
I just think he wasn't going to fall flat on his face, and I also think it's the year he spent in San Francisco and I think that helps being the starting quarter. I think there's a lot of factors in it, and it's just him not being coached by Adam Gase and Matt Rule. Right. I thought we were going to see the best version of Sam Darnold that we've seen,
which I believe too, and I was on board with that. But I'll ask you this: I mean, it begs the question, man. If you felt, because the first thing you said out of your mouth was, I liked him in fantasy, my super flex, because I trusted Kevin O'Connell. If you can trust Kevin O'Connell to revive Sam Darnold, like what does that say about Brian Daboll? Like, if he's not at that level, or more importantly, it might just be, what does it say about Daniel Jones? Because I know a lot of fans view Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold on the same level right now as a quarterback.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, they didn't look anything alike at all on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I think it also has to do with Justin Jefferson. I think it has to do with Jordan Addison. I think it has to do with TJ Hawkinson when he comes back, and then the offensive line is better than the Giants.
Yeah.
But Kevin O'Connell has, this wide zone, outside zone system that when he gets into his play action bag, when he can run the football, which, they haven't historically been great running the football since Dalvin Cook has left. But, I think Aaron Jones is a better running back than an Alexander Madison. And I do believe in Ty Chandler to some degree. I think that system works. And I think it's something that we have seen. I think it's a significant step down from Kirk Cousins if we're talking about Sam Darnold. But again, I think I thought we would see the best version of Sam Darnold, but he is Sam Darnold, which means when he starts seeing some curveballs against the defensive corner, he can still crap all over himself, which may happen. I'm not ruling that out, but it's still such a better situation than Adam freaking Gase and Matt Rule, dude.
Yeah, it is. And I'm not really worried as much about like his past. For me, from my standpoint, Nick, I'm less convinced than I ever have been, at least since we hired him, that Brian Daboll is this advantage on the offensive side of the ball. I like what he did in 2022 to hide Daniel Jones as a quarterback and find a way to get some kind of EPA out of a quarterback with his skill set, which again, we haven't really seen much that he does well besides run and throw the dig route. But it's just unfortunate and sad. But like, that faded, and I look back at the Allen stuff, dude, and I'm wondering how much of that was just he had Josh Allen as his quarterback. Because I watched Josh Allen full game tape this week. They started down 17-3, and I don't really like Brady as a coordinator. I think he's way too run heavy and too 12 personnel heavy. But Allen just went into hero mode in a lot of that game and made some unbelievable plays, dude. And it's just like, I don't know. I'm just at a point where I'm second guessing everything right now. All the things we thought we knew. Brian Daboll gives us an advantage on offense. Joe Shane's a smart, savvy GM with a good process. All this has to be questioned when you look that pathetic in week one.
Second year in a row too.
Yeah.
But this is this is like a good concept, high-low concept where it makes it easy for Sam Darnold. Again, against a suspect secondary. And we saw Adoree Jackson get input into the lineup after this drive. Now, I don't think Adoree played the entire. Nick McLeod ended up getting back out there, if I'm not mistaken. But you have two releases. They're just going to stack right against each other.
Yep.
And then you see Jordan Addison again. Starts outward, then gets to the top of the numbers, and then breaks. Safety gets to that outside hip, and there's that throwing window. Again, Nick McLeod kind of overplays it a little bit, but it's also a tough assignment when you're playing, 8-10 yards off the line of scrimmage against these receivers who can break the routes off so damn quickly.
Ball's out before the receiver gets out of his break, thrown to space rather than to the open receiver. The quarterback's mechanics look good. His feet look good in the pocket. And this offense, this passing game just looks on time, man, and in sync out of nowhere. his first start.
This is rough. This is just rough. Kayvon Thibodeaux, he gets snatched and trapped.
Yeah.
He tried to land the long arm, and it's anticipated very well by Christian Darrisaw, who just looks kind of like Bowser out there. You know, he's like gigantic.
So big, dude.
He's so big, and then you could just see like to see your 5th overall pick get treated
That's
like
a
this.
tough rep.
Yeah, that's a tough. That's probably one of his worst ones. I have to
also
imagine.
Great rep from Darrisaw.
Darrisaw's very good. Yeah,
He's
that's one thing I
really
definitely learned from this tape was Christian Darrisaw is very good at football.
Yeah, he's like elite tackle almost. They got an elite tackle in like the late 20s. Actually, one pick after the Giants drafted Kadarius Toney.
No, I know. Yep. That's being a Giants fan. And then here's the touchdown to Jalen Naylor. Great throw by Sam Darnold.
Throw by Darnold, man.
This is in the far hash. He's on the far hash. Bro, look how he fakes the pump fake to Justin Jefferson. Fakes the pump fake, gets his shoulders set, resets his feet, and delivers this football while DJ Davidson hits him. That's such a good throw.
Insane.
And
we haven't seen
no, we haven't seen anything like that. But this is a great play call to Jefferson. Jefferson, fast 3, put in motion, sell the screen, and that gets Cordell Flott to bite. And it's like, Flott, look, man, like you already have somebody on Justin Jefferson. You need to be cognizant that the assignment you were just on is running past you. We're not trying to block at all.
Yeah.
Like these are the frustrating mistakes that you see from players like Cordell Flott, who this guy has to be out there playing like 60 snaps on this defense. Like every offensive coordinator is going to circle him and just pick on him like the Vikings did on this play, and just absolute toasted, easy touchdown.
That's crazy. Nothing about that. I mean, from the coverage standpoint, yeah, but nothing about that looked easy to me from the pocket view of that. I mean, this is a quarterback who has to pump fake, square his shoulders with a guy bearing down on him, literally about to crush him and clobber him, and he still gets the ball out on time and on target.
And it's a blitz too. You can see how everybody goes outside. There's no Dexter Lawrence on the field. There's no Kayvon Thibodeaux. Everyone goes outside. Well, some of the guys go inside, but everyone sets to the left more, I should say. And then Darius Moose out blitzes around the ass of Brian Burns. So you have a 5-man pressure here, but Moose out gets picked up by 2 different guys. DJ Davidson is the one who creates the pressure, and he is the second leader on the Giants behind Dexter Lawrence in pressures with a whopping 2. But this is actually a pretty damn good rep by DJ Davidson. It's a push, set, pull, swim. Created immediate separation from Ed Ingram and was right in the face of Sam Darnold, but still, obviously, it was completed because the Vikings could do no wrong on Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't love the pressure stat, Nick, as a team total, because I think like it's so dependent on the offense that you play in. So I know if we look at the end of the season, a lot of the best teams in the NFL, I would imagine their pass rushers are up in the leading the league in pressures, or just have so many more opportunities to actually pressure the quarterback. Like Giants didn't have a lot of pressures, but when you watch, I know you just watched it, like the second half tape, dude, like they didn't have that many opportunities really.
No,
they were down so much. The Vikings had no interest in throwing the ball.
Yeah, they could just run the ball and get out of MetLife with a win. But this is a good play by DJ Davidson, and DJ Davidson did not look good on tape either. But this is one that I want.
A great rep from him. He almost gets in there. Darnold just makes an insane play here.
Yeah, who would have thought we'd be saying that, right? And what else we have here? We also have the Dane Belton play. Look how much time though. This is like one of the plays where you rush 4 and you're
getting nothing.
You get nothing. Dane Belton gets his hand. This is a 3rd and long passing situation. Giants get into their sub package. Sam Darnold goes through like a full field and a half progression. And the Giants, to their credit, good in coverage, right? Good in coverage. See Jason Pinnock flying down from a 2-high set. Dane Belton using those defensive basketball skills to get his hand in the throwing window and come away with a PBU.
It's another rough rep for Kayvon Thibodeaux too.
Yeah, he gets
totally eliminated on this. It's just like, he doesn't look big to me right here, like physically imposing at all.
No,
he does look similar to Brian Burns, but Brian Burns has the edge bend, dude. Like
Chapman gets put on his ass again too. Now that he gets bumped into by Kayvon.
That's a tough spot for him.
Yeah,
this is like great eyes by Belton though.
Yeah, and Belton's good, man. This is where Belton thrives. But this is such good protection and such a bad pass rush. And they get all 4 hands on Dexter Lawrence, and this is one where Dexter Lawrence can't even. At this point, Dexter Lawrence is just kind of trying to get his hands in the passing lane,
right?
Because there was nowhere for him to go, and both the edge rushers were dominated on this. Like Brian Burns had to deal with the release of that tight end that slows him down, allows him to not go wide, really helps out Brian O'Neal. But O'Neal just kind of dominates him at that point too.
Jeez, man. I feel like when you have to redirect, what are you saying G's about?
you yawn so much. Do I bore you?
No, it has nothing to do with this. It has to do with just me.
I mean, the Giants bore me, so yeah, I was yawning the entire time I was watching.
No, I just didn't get a lot of sleep the past 2 days, especially last night. So my body's just naturally reacting. Unfortunately,
This is a crazy play by Dane Belton. I love that.
Yeah, great play by Belton.
I think we have like one or two more plays to go over here. This is the Jason Pinnock PBU. I love this play call, man, by Kevin O'Connell. Again, though, like they're scheming plays to the field, Dan.
Right.
They got field side scheme plays because they trust Sam Darnold to deliver that football. When the hell do you ever see that with the Giants?
You don't, because there is no trust for Jones to deliver the football. And if anyone wants to argue against that, you could say, well, then why are defenses leaving the field side open for the Giants and they're still not attacking it?
That's a good play by Jason Pinnock to get over there. I said,
but we don't need to go back on that. That's when I do feel like, sometimes people say that we can sometimes hammer too hard on similar points. We have made that point about Jones and not attacking the field side. So it is what it is. They probably heard that before, but it's a reality and something that's held back this.
Well, it's also fits into what we're watching
offense
right now. I mean, we're watching tape where they're designing plays to the star receiver to that side. So it fits into that.
It does. It does. And one day the Giants will design plays to the field side. One day.
And Darius Muasau's interception. Just look at Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence caused this. And honestly, Garrett Bradbury does like a good job resetting it. Like, look, Garrett Bradbury has to sink himself almost down to the deck, resets his hips against Dexter Lawrence. And Dexter Lawrence right now, he's expended basically all of his energy upward, but it doesn't matter. He still walks Garrett Bradbury right back into Sam Darnold. Like, he's so special, Dexter Lawrence. and it leads to this interception.
Great play by Lawrence. I mean, you could just see the pure strength that he has there.
Yeah. And then, on this one, Kayvon has to deal with a tight end with Brian Burns not on the field. You have Rakeem Nunez-Roches and Elijah Chapman rushing the passer. That's not going to be much ideal at this point. And ends up being a pick for Darius Muasau, who looked okay. He wasn't terrible in the game.
No, he was not. All right, Nick, anything else on this defense before we get to some superlatives?
No, I think we can get into superlatives. The run defense was not good. They need to be structurally sound. The pass defense is going to be a problem all season. Dexter Lawrence is Superman, and the edge rushers need to step up. There you go. Summary.
With that said, there's some positives to take away from the defensive backs. We're going to get that right here with our unheralded players of the game. Who was your unheralded player of the game?
Tyler Nubin is my unheralded player of the game. Look, Tyler Nubin missed most of training camp, but it didn't matter. He played 55 snaps. He was the starter for the Giants defense, and there were plays where he was just flying around. He had one stick at the line of scrimmage, a very beautiful tackle. I ended up putting it on Twitter if anybody wants to go check it out, where he met Aaron Jones or Ty Chandler right at the line and drove him backwards. There was another play where it was an incomplete pass, and you see him going from a deep half, way across the field to cut off a throwing window. So you just kind of saw him flying around the football. I felt like it was a good debut, albeit the Giants obviously didn't really have much positivity. But if you want to look at any bright spots, it was him. He had 6 tackles in this game. I think he had 1 missed tackle, though.
Yeah, he was definitely in the mix for me. And I actually felt like I liked pretty much everything I saw from Nubin, Phillips, and also from Jason Pinnock, who I thought was really good in this game. And I'm really excited about the fact that Jason Pinnock looked good on tape because he's in a new system. And I was just curious how it would fit him. I almost feel like this might end up being a better fit for him, which we'll see if it plays out the season. But my guy that I gave it to is Drew Phillips. The way I look at this thing, Nick, when the Giants actually won football games under this regime in 2022, they won them by really, really close margins. They obviously had one of the easiest schedules in football, but they also had really close margin wins. So the play he made early in that game to force that fumble and give them that opportunity in that year in 2022, dude, they turned that red zone trip into a touchdown, and it defines the whole game. The Giants win the game because of that play. So to me, that's what defines an unheralded play. It didn't work out in this game, obviously, because the Giants offense wasn't able to convert on that and just turn that into 3 points. But those are the types of plays that can turn games when you're a good football team, or even when you're a mediocre football team. Right now, of course, the Giants in week 1, at least, were a horrific football team, one of the worst 2 in the entire league. It was never Carolina. So it didn't matter in that game, but I'm giving it to him.
All right. Highest effort player.
Yeah, this was tough because there were options on this, but I'm giving it to Jason Pinnock. We talked a little bit about him. I just thought he played a really good game. It was sound, 0 missed tackles. Didn't have that many tackles, but 0 missed tackles, and just looked like he knew where he should be in coverage relative to the rest of this defense. Just thought he was further ahead than you could expect for somebody in a new defensive system that's so different than the one he just played in.
Yeah, mine is Drew Phillips for the highest effort player. Obviously, the fumble was a big deal. He also had a tackle on the edge where he basically shoestringed Aaron Jones as the force defender, which I feel like he's going to be really good in that role as that nickel apex guy coming down and being a force defender.
He plays nickel.
Yes, if he plays nickel, which I think he should. And then he also had the 3rd and 8 stop against Jordan Addison on the drag route, which is a really difficult which is a really difficult thing to slow down in man coverage. But that short area quickness that he possesses could be a difference maker in man coverage. So for me, it would be the rookie Drew Phillips.
Okay. How about this one? Not much of a debate, but best player on tape overall, Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter Lawrence, yeah.
Hopefully we can get Brian Burns to win this one occasionally.
He'll get it. Yeah. Eventually.
Pass rushing grade 1 through 10.
Well, we got to do players we expected to see more from.
Oh, sorry. Players we expect to see more from.
For me, it's Kayvon, and that's obvious in my opinion.
Yeah, it's Kayvon for me, or I would say Banks or Burns. Just the fact that like these are supposed to be potential stars for them. Let's start to see them play like stars.
Yeah. Pass rush. I put a 3.9. Now, I wanted to go a little higher just because Dex was so dominant, but we had expectations for Kayvon and Brian Burns, and they didn't necessarily manifest. Now, the caveat to that is the offense didn't do them any justice. They really didn't pass rush all that much in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter. So I want to, put that context out there, but still I was expecting a little bit more. So a 3.9.
I mostly graded this pass rush on the first half because of what you just said. I just think it's kind of unfair to grade them when they're down that much, when the offense does that poor of a job for the Giants. And it's not even like just the offense was just dysfunctional by going 3 and out all the time. They turned it over too, like multiple times, once in the other team's red zone. So I went 4.4 because Dexter Lawrence was so dominant that he almost brought it up to 5 himself.
Yeah. So run defense.
This is bad.
It's not good. It's not good. I went with a 2.1 for run defense. It probably could have been worse. They averaged 4.3 yards per carry. There were a couple plays where Okereke and Nubin and a couple of the other second-level defenders did well. There were a couple plays early in the game where Dexter Lawrence just took over and like just was an absolute force with a gravitational pull on the line of scrimmage. But overall, I mean, it was tough, especially outside near those edge rushers.
Right.
Like something that needs to be rectified. So I went 2.1. You said you went 1?
1.0, yeah. So I just felt – I think context for me is playing a role here. I don't really have any faith that Kevin O'Connell reinvented the wheel and created a strong run game in Minnesota. And I think that will play out over the rest of the year. They're going to be one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL, Minnesota. And the fact that they were able to run for 4.3 against the Giants is not a good sign. Obviously, it's week 1. I think a lot of this will hopefully be corrected within Shane Bowen Stevens. But if I'm just grading on a scale of what did I see, I saw the run defense look terrible in this game. So unfortunately, 1.0.
Nice, man. Yeah. And those are all our superlatives.
Yes. All right. Thank you to everybody who tuned in to the Big Blue Banter podcast. We appreciate your support. Please like the video if you haven't already. Keep it locked and loaded. More content coming your way. And go Giants.